Welcome, welcome. We are live. Moneyline MMA returns to action for UFC Seattle. Israel Adesanya headlines this card against Joe Pyfer. Israel slowly, potentially turning into a gatekeeper for the middleweight division since he's kind of fallen short for a few fights in a row here. Joe Pyfer, sort of the exact opposite. He's not quite undefeated in the UFC, but he's obviously a star rising, looking to get his shot at the top 10 rank of the UFC middleweight rankings. That said, Jose and I are going to get right into things. We weren't able to make last week work based on plans, but we're obviously going to continue forward as is. UFC does not have any weekends without a fight card, at least through the end of April, as far as I'm aware. So we've got a lot of fight action coming up, including next pay-per-view, I believe, is the first weekend in April. But either way, for anyone that's new here, we make our picks. We make 5 picks of the 13 scheduled fights for UFC Seattle, and we weigh those picks in order of confidence, with 5 weight being the most confident pick and 1 weight being the least confident pick. We make these picks individually and then just confer before hitting live so that we know what order to go in, since we're always going to go with our locks of the week, aka our 5 weight picks first. So without further ado, for this Saturday UFC Seattle, my 5 weight is actually going to be off of the main card. Not too common of an occurrence here, but I'm going to be taking the headline of the preliminaries here. Ignacio Bahamondes versus Tafik Masayev. Now, I will say this is what Tapology says is the headline of the prelims. Some places will say otherwise. It's kind of hit or miss since it's a UFC card until we get a little closer to Saturday. But in any case, I'm taking a 5 weight here on Ignacio Bahamondes to get the job done against Tafik Masayev. I'm excited for what Bahamondes has brought to this promotion since he's come in. He's got 11 KO wins and 0 KO losses. You know, he was on a great streak until he kind of ran into Fiziev, who is a big step up from some of the competition that he was facing. So that's a respectable loss to take, in my opinion. Fiziev is a top-tier striker and a great fighter at the lightweight division. So nothing to be ashamed of if you're Ignacio Bahamondes by that loss. And I think the UFC is kind of bringing it back a little bit here with him, getting the matchup against Tafik Masayev. Tafik is a good fighter, but he's 36 years old. He's coming in out of the Risen promotion. I'm losing my words here. The Risen promotion, he's 7-1 in Risen. He comes in and loses his debut fight in the UFC to Midibek Orobai, who's a great fighter. But I just don't think he's got what it takes to beat Ignacio. It's too much of a seasoned UFC veteran. Ignacio may not be like a earth-shattering prospect, but he's got 9 UFC fights under his belt. And Tafik Masayev is coming in here with an 0-1 record so far in his UFC tenure. So I think that's going to continue going negative for him. I think Ignacio uses his size. Of course, he's one of the tallest and longest guys in the division. And I think he dices up Masayev for a KO or a decision. And that's pretty much that. Any thoughts, Jose?
Yeah, Nick. So I 100% agree with you on this. I'm going with Ignacio Bahamondes as well. He is my 3 weight. Reason being is just that the reason why he's my 3 weight is I just still, even though he's looked phenomenal, there's been a lot of like little mishaps Ignacio Bahamondes has had in his past few fights, including the Rafael Fiziev fight and Ludovic Klein. There's been moments where, if he can't get a first round finish, because he's kind of a fast starter, if he can't get that, there's little holes that other guys have kind of been exposing on him. And I'm not, and Tafik, to be honest, I don't think will, but I think like if Bahamondes does not finish him in the first round, I think it's just only going to get like harder for him to finish Tafik, is what I'm saying. Because to be honest, Tafik, he's an experienced fighter, even though I don't think he's had the same level of competition as Ignacio Bahamondes. He has a lot of experience. He's 36 years old, and he's kind of a hit or miss type of fighter. I think, Bahamondes should get this done. And I would even say, as far as like TKO, KO, no matter what, or if he wins, it will be a unanimous decision. Bahamondes is just a big dude in general. So he's a good three-way. Maybe I could have put him in my 4 as well, but he has a 6.5 reach advantage over Tofik. He's 6'3". Tofik is 5'9", and just a high volume striker. Like, we were gonna get up Bahamundes, and I think that's here. He's probably just going to overwhelm Tufik, to be honest. So that's why I think he most likely will win by TKO. Tufik, I think you can expect him to want to engage in grappling. But Bahamundes, I think we'll stop that. So again, like, he's only my 3-weight just because there's fights. I think the fights that he lost for sure too, he should have won. And so he lost to John McDessie. This was years ago, split decision. He could have won that. The Ludovic Klein one was just like a disappointing performance from him. And with the Rafael Fiziev, he just went against a guy that was just a lot more experienced with him in striking. So Tufik is not more experienced with him, at least of being a better striker. So this one 100% should be Ignacio Bahamundes. I like that you have him as a 5-weight. He probably should have been a higher than the 3-weight that I have him at, but regardless, I 100% agree with you on Ignacio Bahamundes. I think he's going to get the job done Saturday.
Sounds good. So we both agree that'll be 8 combined confidence points. Ignacio Bahamundes rebounding off of a loss to beat Tafik Masayev. Jose's got a little bit more hesitancy on Ignacio, which is totally fair. I see it. I do think it's a little bold on my end to take a 5-weight pick on a preliminary fight here, and a guy who has disappointed in the past in situations where he should have won. But I think Ignacio, we're seeing sort of an evolution. He's still young, and I think he's still putting together kind of his best game and his best foot forward. So hopefully, especially if I'm correct, he'll definitely get the job done. And with that, I'll close on the fact that Ignacio Bahamundes is a minus 295 favorite. Pretty big, basically 3-1 favorite on the sports books there. Tafik Masayev, a plus 220 dog. So my 5-weight, and also the public agree that Bahamundes should get the job done. With that, we'll go to Jose's 5-weight.
So for my 5-weight, this is going to bring us to the main event right off the bat. The middleweight bout between Izzy Adesanya and Joe Pyfer. I didn't have the odds on this, but I can't tell you if Izzy's the favorite or not, but I feel like he would be just based off his experience, even though he's coming off 3 losses in a row. Yeah, I would think he would still be the favorite because, I mean, when you're looking at him, he's taking losses to Alex Pereira, Sean Strickland, Dricus du Plessis, and Nasruddin Nemavov. Like, these are no jokes. 3 out of the 4 guys right there are former champs. And that being said, like, he's just been at the top for so long, and he's gonna have some slip ups. And of course, like that Nasruddin Nemavov, I thought he definitely, that should have been a fight that he should have won. But Nasruddin is the real deal, and not to say Joe Pyfer is it, but Joe Pyfer is not nearly as experienced as Izzy Adesanya is in terms of MMA in general. Joe Pyfer, he's a good boxer, and he has phenomenal power, just brutal force. But that means I think Izzy Adesanya is just going to be a faster striker than him. And I think Izzy Adesanya is going to be a little more diverse with his striking. He's going to mix in more leg kicks, and not as an easy guy to bring down. And I do think Pyfer is going to try to rely somewhat on the grappling as well. Once he gets overwhelmed by the strikes, he's going to try to hook Izzy against the cage and take him down. But I think, and if Pyfer ends up winning, it's going to be that. I think it's just going to be nothing but control against the cage and on the ground, and not really do much. But Izzy, at least on the feet, I know Izzy's going to piece him up for sure. Izzy has a 5-inch reach advantage over Joe Pyfer. He's slightly taller. He's 6'4". Joe Pyfer is 6'2". And the striking differential, like, Izzy Adesanya has 4.02 significant strikes per minute. Joe Pyfer 3.47. But again, Izzy has just far more striking experience in general, even before MMA with kickboxing. He's just a high-level elite kickboxer. And so that being said, I think he's going to beat Joe Pyfer for sure. Joe Pyfer is still somewhat relatively new, even though he's 15-3. He's just not as experienced as Izzy, as I said. And he's beaten some dudes with experience like Kevin Gastelum, but that's Kevin Gastelum. Like, I don't even know if I take that serious anymore. Him beating Abus Magomedov is pretty impressive, especially because Abus is he's a good striker, so maybe he feels confident taking on Izzy Adesanya, and you can expect Joe Pyfer is going to want to probably finish Izzy similar to how he did with Abus in terms of look for the submission. So that's the way. If Joe Pyfer would have won, I do think it would be via submission. But other than that, like, most of the dudes he's gone against, like, he should have beaten anyways. So that being said, like, and he lost to Jack Hermanson, and that was only in 2024, so just 2 years ago. And Jack Hermanson is pretty much been falling off since then. And so that being said, I feel just really, really good about Izzy Adesanya taking this. I think this is just a good matchup, and I do think it's a bit step down compared to the most of the competition he's been facing. You got Alex Pereira, elite level, Sean Strickland, elite level striking, Dricus du Plessis, former champ, Narzedin Nemavov, next up and comer. So, and pretty soon up in line, if it wasn't Sean Strickland, it should have been Narzedin Nemavov to fight Khamzat Chimaev. Joe Pyfer, I think he's still growing in this sport and especially in this division. So I think, Izzy Adesanya is just going to show like there's levels to this, and he's going to look more like his old Super Saiyan form. So that being said, this one I feel heavy on Adesanya. I'm going all in. He's my 5-weight. Nick, what are your thoughts on this one?
Man, I respect you going all in on Izzy there with the 5-weight, and I think that's the right move if you were to take one on the main event. And I do agree, although with a lot less confidence, I'm going with my 1-weight on Izzy. If I've done it before, it's been a long time where I used my 1-weight pick, my least confident pick on the main event. It's a pick I like to make every week regardless, and 1-weight just goes to show I'm really back and forth on it. But I do agree. I'm picking Izzy. And I'll start with saying that you're correct, Jose. Izzy's a slight favorite here at minus 136. Joe Pyfer's plus 106. So public agrees Izzy's experience, what he's been able to do in the UFC as far as the championship reign that he had and how close he really still is removed from that. Even though it's been, I guess you want to say it's not quite been 2 years. It's been a year and a half. But it feels maybe like it's been longer than that. But either way, I'm giving a little respect here to Joe Pyfer and what he's been able to do finish-wise. I think if he's going to beat Izzy, he's got to finish Izzy. Some things against Joe Pyfer, he doesn't have, it's not even close. Like you mentioned the experience, Jose, even kickboxing before the UFC, but also just like 5-round MMA fights, right? Like not many guys get 5-round MMA fights going. And Joe Pyfer's only 5-round MMA fight was a loss to Jack Hermanson, where he kind of got diced up. And that's exactly kind of how I would expect this fight to go if Izzy's, game plan goes to fruition. He's going to outstrike Joe Pyfer, win basically each round 10-9 and get a 50-45 decision win. And Joe Pyfer, to me, is going to need to get the finish on Izzy, whether that's a TK. Like, I don't think he knocks out Izzy cold like Alex Pereira was able to. I think Izzy's still got a chin, and I still think he's really resilient. So if Pyfer's going to do it, it's going to have to be some sort of like Izzy's kind of just turtling up and not really fighting back kind of finish. But I believe that Izzy will not let that happen. He's coming off 3 straight losses. I guarantee he's had urgency. He took some time off. He hasn't fought now in over a year. It was February 2025 when he lost to Imavov. So we're looking at a year and a month of time off. I think that's good for Izzy. I want to think that he's got his mind right. I want to think that his physicality, maybe whatever injuries he was nursing since he was so active for so long are kind of healed now. And he's not old. He's like 36. Like, that's not old at all. He's still got it. I think he can eke out a good decision win here against Joe Pyfer and continue to be at least like a bottom end of the top 5 middleweight kind of guy. Because I'm just really not sure he still has what it takes to beat someone like Khamzat at all.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I think, Pyfer, the biggest thing, I don't think he's going to knock out Izzy as well. The thing is like, I think he could clip him. Like, obviously could happen. Anything can happen to MMA, but he could clip Izzy just so with the same way Nazdrin Nemavov did. And I'll tell you this, I think all the 3 dudes that Izzy lost to in his last 3 fights, all 3 of them, I think, beat Joe Pyfer. I think Nazdrin beats Joe Pyfer, Dricus du Plessis, and Sean Strickland. I think all 3 of them beat Joe Pyfer. So, True. And like you mentioned, the 5-round thing is huge. And if he's getting outstruck by a guy that's a big grappler, then that's, makes me feel better about, how he's going to look against a true striker in the 4th and 5th round. So, right. That being said, yeah, this is one we both agree on. I'm just a little heavier. I'm actually pretty heavy on it. I'm heavy on Izzy with 5-weight. You're just a little hesitant because you put a lot of respect on Joe Pyfer and his power. And so Izzy is your 1-weight.
Yeah, I think Joe Pyfer knows he's really, Joe Pyfer's also got less to lose, so Joe Pyfer can really kind of just go for it if he really wants to. He can kind of just go for it. And honestly, like, I guess Izzy finished Alex Pereira on the feet, but like Izzy's far from the kind of guy where you're like worried about his knockout power in like one punch kind of thing. So if I'm Joe Pyfer and his coaches, I'm saying, dude, we're going in there and we're swinging. We're fucking swinging. And it, like to the point where Izzy knows if I get hit by one of those, I could be done. And Izzy then has to play a very careful game plan as to how he wants to attack. So you got to play almost like a little mind game. But either way, I like Izzy a lot. He's going to get the job done on Saturday.
Yeah, so this is definitely a lock for us. And do you want to jump onto your 4-weight?
Yep. So my 4-weight is going to be, I want to say this is the feature fight. Yes, at least according to the UFC stats website, the UFC website, and whatnot. This is the feature fight. Michael Chiesa is fighting not Carlston Harris. That is now a scratched fight because Carlston Harris was having visa issues, as far as I'm seeing, and it is now Nico Price. So for those reasons is why I'm very confident 4-weight on Michael Chiesa here. For those that may not have been following, this is Chiesa's retirement fight. He has announced that this is his final fight of his career, no matter if it's a win or a loss. And that said, he's been scheduled for this fight. He's been in his camp, and I think he's obviously going to just go out giving it his best. And lately, his best has been good enough to beat a few other aging UFC veterans that don't really have much behind their name, like Tony Ferguson after being washed up, Max Griffin and Court McGee after being washed up. So by no means is key. Like, it looks good that he's winning 3 in a row, but it's like, they're also against guys who basically retired after that fight. But then Nico Price is coming off 3 straight losses, and he can only beat Alex Morono, who's like the most up and down fighter that exists. So either way, I think this is a great spot for Chiesa because he's retiring. He knows this is like a go out with a bang kind of fight. He's been in camp, so it's Nico Price that's the late replacement, not Michael Chiesa. So I like that Nico Price is just having to step in without a full camp. And Nico Price, like we've already discussed, he's 36, so he's not quite old, but he's getting up there, and he's certainly not improving from fight to fight anymore because he keeps losing. So with that said, I think I'm going to take Chiesa 4-weight, and he's just going to go out there with more urgency to get the job done, given that it's his retirement fight and he's got his family there, and he doesn't want to be seen unconscious and then have to retire after that in front of his own family. So that said, I don't have any odds on this because books have taken down the Carlston Harris aspect of that cancellation, and I don't think they've taken the time yet to put up the replacement yet since the UFC hasn't announced it officially. So that said, you'll have to look for odds later in the week to make bets. I imagine Michael Chiesa will be a slight favorite, though, for sure. What do you think, Jose?
Yeah, so for this one, I agree with you on Michael Chiesa. He is only my 1-weight, though, but honestly, I should have moved him up higher because the thing about Michael Chiesa is, for as long as he's been in the UFC, you would think he does have a good resume in the UFC. But for how long he's been in the UFC, you're talking about he's been in the UFC since 2012. I feel like he would almost have more fights on his record because there's many other fighters that have way more fights in less time than that. And he's the type of fighter where he's not as active as you'd think he is, as he should have been. But he when he shows up, he just shows up out of nowhere and reminds people like, yo, like how good he is, like especially in the grappling department. Like, for example, like on average, I would say most of the time he fought like once a year, and then every once in a while he like will fight maybe 3 times a year at most. But and then like he took 2022 completely off. So he's not like as active as I thought he would be or he should have been, but when he shows up, he puts on a show, and it just reminds you like, damn, like, because he was ranked for so long, and then now he's not really. I don't think he's ranked anymore, but he's just not as an active fighter. Essentially, is what I'm trying to say. But he's still good. And then Nico Price, on the other hand, he's been in the UFC since. He has way more. I think he has more UFC fights than Michael Chiesa, and he's only been in the UFC since 2016. 4 years later after Michael Chiesa, and he's been extremely active. And that being said, he is a late replacement, and I just have to go hard with Michael Chiesa again. He's on a 3-fight winning streak. And Nico Price, to be honest, is not good. I mean, he's only won 4 out of his last 14 fights. That's actually insane. So, and him being a late minute replacement is why I kind of put Michael Chiesa just on the bottom, just because, kind of like the last fight too. Like we were talking about, Nico Price knows he has nothing to lose. Like he's gonna just show up, and he's just gonna risk and put himself in positions just to be knocked out. I would say Michael Chiesa would win this. My best bet would be via submission. Out of his 19 wins, he's actually never KO'd or TKO'd anyone, just purely submitted them or won by decision. So, like, who knows? Maybe Michael Chiesa will get his first knockout of his career for his retirement fight. That'd be cool to see. But that being said, Michael Chiesa, he's also just a big, thick guy. Like, he's 6'1", and he for welterweight, he's just a thick ass dude. And when it comes to striking too, like I don't like neither guy is a phenomenal boxer, kickboxer. And Michael Chiesa he's kind of like Ben Askren, almost, where like he just throws strikes just to set up to get a hold of you. So not the cleanest stuff, just trying to find a way to get in. So that being said, yeah, I expect Michael Chiesa to look for a takedown and either submit Nico Price or just completely dominate him all 3 rounds and win by unanimous decision. Nico Price overall is just not good. Last minute replacement. He didn't prep enough for Michael Chiesa. Michael Chiesa is my 1-weight, but yeah, I definitely should have him higher. So I'm glad that you put him at a 4-weight, because I feel like he should have been up there for me as well.
Yeah, I think you make a great point too, just with the fact that if he's going to get a finish, it's probably a submission. I think you're 100% correct there. So looking for Chiesa to press the gas pedal to the floor there and get a finish against Nico Price. That wouldn't be something that Nico Price is unfamiliar with, although he's been finished on the feet more than anything. He just recently got submitted by somebody named Jacoby Smith, who is undefeated but is very young and raw still. So Nico Price showing some vulnerabilities on the ground. And with that said, I think we move on next to Jose's 4-weight then.
Yes, so for my 4-way, this brings us midway of the main card, and this is the featherweight bout between Julian Erosa and Lurian Douglas. Right now, Lurian Douglas, he's actually going to make his official UFC debut. He does have a win on Dana White's Contender Series, where he looked phenomenal, and he got a first round KO over Cam Tige. And that being said, like, he has a lot of experience. He's a former champion for the LFA, and he's just been a pretty active fighter outside the UFC, and relatively young. He's actually only 30 years old. So I think he's still at a good time to be like on the cusp of entering his prime of his career. And Julian Erosa is 36, and he's already been in the UFC for quite some time, since 2018. And he's been a hit or miss type of guy, win losses. He has some notable wins over like Darren Elkins most recently, and Christian Rodriguez, Ricardo Ramos. So he's been in there. Charles Jourdain, Nick Landwehr, Sean Woodson. So he's got some pretty impressive wins. Not the most impressive, but some respectable ones. And he's lost to some dudes that I feel like he definitely should have beat. But that being said, I just think that his experience versus Lurian Douglas, I think is going to play a huge role in this. I think there's definitely levels to when it comes to the UFC. And even though Lurian Douglas was a champion for LFA, I haven't seen much of him, to be honest. And LFA is more like that. Like, it's like the minor leagues into the UFC. It's like almost like a feeder league for the UFC. They bring guys up, and then you hardly ever see guys go from the UFC over to the LFA. It's almost like a step down, I would say. But I would say like LFA is not as good as as the PFL or One Championship, but still pretty close and pretty respectable. So him being a champ there, it makes sense that they'll put him against a guy that's like either not ranked or somewhere at the bottom of the rankings. And I think it's gonna be a good fight. It's gonna be a good matchup. And how they match up physically is Julian Erosa. He has a 2.5-inch reach advantage over Larian Douglas, and he's 6'1". Larian Douglas is 5'9". And just the records, just 31-13 for Julian Erosa is crazy. And then versus the 13-5 Larian Douglas has, again, Julian Erosa just having a lot more experience. Both guys are high volume strikers, but the same thing with both guys. The one thing that I see for them both statistically, no matter how much experience they have, is both guys definitely get clipped a lot too. So I think this fight's definitely going to be on the feet. Both guys don't seem to be much of wrestlers, to be honest. They both seem to just heavily just be stand in front of you and just throw down. So I think one of them is going to be clipped and go to sleep. And that being said, Julian Erosa, he's won via submission. Two out of his three most recent wins are by submission. He's pretty a diverse guy actually. 14 submissions and 12 KOs. He's pretty in there. Like, yeah, out of his 31 wins, he's only actually gone a decision 5 times. So that, yeah, I honestly think he's going to finish Larian Douglas. And honestly, I don't know if it's going to be TKO or submission anymore. Hard to say, but I definitely know this fight is most likely not going to make it to the end of the 3 rounds. I think his experience in the UFC alone is going to play a huge role, and him just being overall a finisher at a high rate. Like, yeah, I got Julian Erosa as my 4-way. I feel really good. I think he's going to pretty much welcome Larian Douglas with a finish. So that being said, Julian Erosa, my 4-way. I think he gets the job done, and he gets an early stop. He gets a stoppage on Saturday. Nick, what are your thoughts on this fight?
Man, I think this is an interesting matchup for a guy like Larian Douglas, who's coming in from the Contender Series. I understand he's got LFA experience and successful LFA experience, at that being 4-1, and all of them being finishes TKO or KO, by the way, too. But for him to come in and fight Julian Erosa right away seems like a very big task for somebody. It's hard for me to find much about Larian Douglas that leads me to thinking this is deserved. Like, I don't know, it's not that he's a bad fighter, but usually you don't fight a guy like, for example, like we see Raul Rosas Jr. go through the ranks and fight guys like Christian Rodriguez and other fighters. Well, Julian Erosa has already beaten Christian Rodriguez by a finish in the first round. Like, Julian Erosa has established that he is not like the bottom end kind of guy that just gets to fight the newest prospect, and that's the only reason he's around. So there's fascinating matchmaking here. There must be something maybe I'm not aware of. I get that Erosa's not like a huge flashy guy, and he's coming off a decision loss. I get that, but I mean, Marquez Alcácer is a great fighter. He's on like a 7 or 8 fight win streak. What are we talking about? That's not a bad loss to take. Julian Erosa for sure should win this fight, but I don't have an official weight on it. He's got the experience, and he seems to be the better fighter, even though he does take some damage on the feet.
And Nick, do you happen to have the odds for this fight?
That's a great question. Let me double check. Since this is this a prelim? No, or is this some? Hold on, let me see if this is a prelim or not. No, this is main card. Okay. This is okay. So wow, dude, Jose and I are over here, unsure what's being. We must be completely unaware of something going on. Larian Douglas is -320. Julian Erosa is a +235 dog. I guess, are people's mouths just that sour because of one loss? I don't understand. Like, Erosa's not that bad of a fighter for him to be plus. That's crazy. +235 against the UFC newcomer feels disrespectful. I do some research and see if there's like maybe someone leaked that he's injured or something. I don't know. If Julian Erosa's secretly injured, I don't pick him anymore. But like, that seems weird. I don't know quite what's going on there.
Yeah,
does Jose. Yeah,
that's not enough respect to Julian Erosa, man. Like, honestly,
shoot,
like,
right?
he's the underdog. He's my underdog of the week then, because that makes me feel better though, because him being an underdog, it's like just people don't, maybe they just don't know what we know. And I mean, I don't know what they like. Again, Larian Douglas, like, it's not like Julian Erosa is definitely being former champs from other organizations as well. So just it's smaller organizations, but to be honest, that's what I think the LFA is. It's just a feeder organization for the UFC. It's not the big leagues yet. It's just like it's still the minor leagues. So I don't know what they see. Maybe I just don't think they respect Julian Erosa. Again, possibly that most recent loss he has, but you know,
I don't know,
he
man.
was on a 3-fight winning streak before that against some some tough dudes. So yeah, I don't know what they see, but man, shit, man, I like Julian Erosa then as an underdog heavy. So
That's a
yeah,
good
I'm
pick.
roll.
It's a good pick. That's a good pick. So with that, I'll take it to my 3 weight. And my 3 weight brings us to the. This is listed currently as the opening fight to the main card. Again, these things could all be subject to change as the fight day gets closer. But I'm gonna be taking. I'm gonna be bold here. This is crazy. I almost swore off doing this, but I'm gonna be saying the words that I'm picking Terrence McKinney, and I'm giving him a 3 weight here. I it's hard. Terrence McKinney is one of the most. I mean, don't. I'm picking Terrence McKinney, but don't bet on it. All right, Terrence McKinney is not a guy you bet on him. What's crazy? I'm Jose's probably going to be surprised to hear this as much as I was. The Terrence McKinney's a minus 178 favorite. I mean, against any fighter, to hear that Terrence McKinney's a favorite anymore is crazy. Poor Kyle Nelson at plus 138. I do agree though that Terrence McKinney should get the job done. Terrence McKinney, clear keyword, should. And there's so many times that he's been in a situation where he should and did not. So again, don't be surprised. Terrence McKinney, we're talking about a guy got finished by Drew Dober, finished by a lot of guys. Because guess what? Terrence McKinney, the reason he's still around through the trials and the tribulations, guys like that, the UFC often like to cut. The reason Terrence McKinney's around is because in what is this 25 professional MMA fights, not a single one has been win or lost. So that means not a single one of 25 has resulted in a decision. Terrence McKinney has never once, for a win or loss, needed a judge to step in on his fights. And I think that alone is one thing that's going to help him against Kyle Nelson. Kyle Nelson traditionally is a decision guy, at least recently is a decision guy. And he's been finished. He's gotten some finishes against lower end fighters. But Kyle Nelson's best wins are decision wins against good fighters. He's 5-5 in the UFC. I'm not that impressed. And I think Terrence McKinney's just going to do his thing. He's going to go in there, swing heavy. He's going to open his chin up and potentially get finished himself. But Kyle Nelson, I'm not as worried about as I am if I'm going against Terrence McKinney in a kind of situation like that. So, man, it's really not like it's a 3-weight. So, don't take, like I said, definitely don't bet on it. That's crazy, especially as a favorite. But I think Terrence McKinney is in an advantageous spot here where he should be able to finish Kyle Nelson, a guy that's been finished plenty and plenty of times. He's been finished 4 times in his career. So I think that could easily step up and be a 5 after Saturday. What do you think, Jose?
Yeah, Nick. So I do not have any weight on this just because, yeah, I just don't think Terrence McKinney is a reliable fighter. And to be honest, I am extremely shocked to see how much of a favorite he is. And the thing is, both guys, yeah, like almost hit or miss. Like both guys are definitely losing and winning to people they shouldn't, one or the other. And it's just tough. Like especially Terrence McKinney, a lot of his fights, majority of them end in the first round, whether he's winning or losing. Unfortunately for him, most of them have been first round wins. But he just got submitted in the first round by Chris Duncan, and then he got knocked out before that a few fights by Esteban Ribovics. And so he like you just don't see Terrence McKinney in the octagon for long. Like it's mostly on average the first round. So I would like to say this fight is gonna end in the first round, one way or the other. I do like, I guess, Terrence McKinney a little more than Kyle Nelson, just because he's younger, he's got the longer reach, and I do think that Terrence McKinney has just overall, what win or lose, has faced tougher competition than Kyle Nelson. Kyle Nelson, I think, like the 2 most impressive wins he has are the Matt Frivola and Bell Algeo fight. Other than that, like, yeah, he's got some other good names, but overall, I think Terrence McKinney's faced tougher competition. You got Ismail Bonfim on there. You got Drew Dober. You got Faraz Zaim. You also got Matt Frivola. So yeah, a tough one, a tough one for me to really choose. So I have no weight on it, but if I were to pick one, I'm going to go with the younger guy being Terrence McKinney because I think he still has room for improvement. If he just yeah, that's all I can say is yeah, like he still has a lot of room for improvement. On the other hand, Callum Nelson is just he's older now, and I just don't see him being that much of a threat to Terrence McKinney. So no weight on it, but if I had to pick one, it's Terrence McKinney.
Okay, fair enough, man. Yeah, it's not a hugely confident pick, but again, it's a pick that needs to be made, and I've often said that sometimes the picks that you don't want to make, like Terrence McKinney, a guy that kind of makes you cringe almost, sometimes that's the pick you got to make to be the guy that stands out. Right? Not many people are going to be confident as I am to do that, and I'm going to be happy come Saturday night because Terrence McKinney's going to get the job done. And with that, I think Jose can take us with the last pick that we have for Saturday.
Yes, Nick. So for my final pick, my two weight that being, this is going to bring us to the co-main event, the women's flyweight bout between Alexa Grasso and Macy Barber. This one, it was a tough one because Macy Barber is so good. She's so tough. But honestly, it's just so hard for me to go against Alexa Grasso. Like no matter how the tough, I'm pretty sure I went for her the first time she fought Valentina Shevchenko. And it's just so hard not to root for Alexa Grasso. I've been a fan of hers even before she entered the UFC when she was in Invicta. So that being said, she's just former champ and she's just faced a lot of who's who, and she actually has a win over Macy Barber back in 2021. I feel like her being the former, but again, Macy Barber, that was 2021. Macy Barber since that Alexa Grasso fight, that was her last loss. She's won everyone that's been put in front of her since then. And some of the people that she's beaten though too, like Miranda Maverick, Montana De La Rosa, Jessica Ai, Andrea Lee, not the most impressive names to be honest. Like they're just people that are in there versus Alexa Grasso, who went on to beat Valentina Shevchenko and even went to draw with her in the rematch. So that being the biggest names for sure. And yeah, this one I'm just gonna still go with Alexa Grasso. She's still young. She's only 32 years old. Macy Barber's younger, being 27. So this one, it's a close one. That's why it's my two-way, just because Macy Barber is just against Alexa Grasso being her last loss, and she's been extremely active. She's just been going through everyone that was put in her path. It's definitely a different Macy Barber, but I do think it's also a different Alexa Grasso, being 5 years older. She facing top-level competition multiple times, like Valentina Shevchenko. Very mature fighter. You know what you're going to get out of Alexa Grasso as well. Heavy boxing style, pretty much that's it. And look for opportunities. Not many submissions on her record, but she's shown that she can get submissions if put in the scenario when the opportunity presents itself, I should say. But I think Alexa Grasso most likely is just going to win this by decision is the best way I see it. I just think her experience and also just having that win over Macy Barber just always adds like an extra level of confidence as well. So I don't think she's going to be too stressed at all leading up to this fight. Not that I ever thought she would be, but I feel like just most of the time, I feel like when fighters have like a win over another fighter, it's always got like, there's always like an extra level of confidence. Like they're like, oh, I beat him before, so I'm not too worried. But they know, like, I'm sure she's highly aware of Macy Barber on the threat that she is and how good and how much she's improved since their last meeting. So not much more than to say to that. I'm going to take the former champ on this one. Low confidence, again, because Macy Barber is legit a threat. And not much of an advantage in other places. I would say, she only has a 1 inch reach advantage over Macy Barber. They're both the same height. Both have about the same level of experience in terms of MMA. Their striking differential is not much different. I would say Alexa Grasso probably takes a little more hits to the face than Macy Barber does. Macy Barber is more likely to be the one to engage in grappling and look for a takedown in this fight as well. But that being said, yeah, Alexa Grasso, my two-way. Nick, what are your thoughts on this one?
We've got our first head-to-head disagreement here. I'm going to be taking Macy Barber with my last weight here. Of course, process of elimination to weight as well. Just on Macy Barber instead. The odds side with me on Macy Barber. She is a minus 158 favorite. Alexa Grasso, a plus 124 dog. And I don't think that that's disrespect necessarily to Grasso. I think she's still getting her respect, but at the same time, she got that submission win against Shevchenko, but was she really winning the fight? It felt kind of fluky, right? And then she lost the belt right away and got a chance to get it back and lost and then lost to Natalia Silva even most recently. So I think Macy Barber is obviously it's clear that she's on a better win streak right now, and she's the more hot fighter, and I like that that she's on a hotter streak of specifically some finishes included with some decisions. And the only thing she's missing in that streak, in my eyes, is a 5 round fight. And that doesn't really matter here because this isn't a 5 round fight. This is a co-main. So we're only looking at 3 rounds anyways. Macy Barber, typically in women's fights, there's really not much concern of a finish. It's just kind of how it is. It's really rare. And in fact, I'm not sure there's ever been a women fighter like Terrence McKinney where they've gone like 25 plus professional MMA fights and never once, either win or loss, gone to a judge. Um, that's kind of unprecedented in women's MMA, and I'm not trying to say that they're boring, but it's just different. And a lot of times you almost have to think like, who's the better decision fighter? And it's hard to say here, man. I go back and forth. It's part of the reason it's my two-way. Grasso's got more decision wins under her belt, but her ratio, I mean, she's lost 4 decisions, right? She's coming off 2 straight decision losses on top of a decision draw split, which, I don't know. It's against Valentina Shevchenko, so it's really irrelevant because she's the best that there really is. And there's that argument that can be made that Grasso, of course, fighting the best of the best. I think Macy Barber is one of the best, if not she's going to win this fight and get a belt shot, all of those things. So either way, this is going to be an interesting fight. I like Macy Barber on the feet. I think she can stand with Alexa Grasso. I don't really see this going to the ground. Macy Barber does have a history of wrestling and getting takedowns. I'm not really sure she's going to look to do that here. Maybe. I mean, Grasso doesn't have a whole lot of success defending submissions. She's got a couple submissions under her belt. UFC's been well to Grasso in the jiu-jitsu side of things. Maybe Macy Barber switches it up, but I anticipate a decision win for Macy Barber here on my perspective. I think she's just the younger, and I mean, as her nickname states, she's the future, and I think she's coming for the belt next.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if Macy wins this, she's definitely in line. Her and Natalia Silva. I think Natalia Silva may just have the slight edge over her in terms of a next title shot, just because Natalia Silva is like on a 3-fight winning streak against 3 former champs. But Macy Barber, if she beats her, she's already. I think that will be her first former champ that she would have beaten. So I do think we'll throw her in competition to get a title shot as well soon. Her versus Natalia Silva, if she beats Alexa Grasso, would be a fun fight to see as well. So again, Macy Barber, I know she's the real deal, and she's just obviously only getting better as well. So that's why Alexa Grasso is my 2-weight. So yeah, this is one where we both disagree on, but we both got are on opposite ends of this at the 2-weight level.
Yeah, you make a good point though. I will say it would be pretty sick to see Natalia Silva versus the winner of this fight. Although Natalia Silva versus Grasso is a little less exciting, they literally did that and Grasso lost. So I don't think we're going to see that happen. I think it's Macy Barber if she wins. If Macy Barber loses, you probably just, like you saying, Jose, just give Silva the next title shot. Or if you're feeling frisky, maybe you do Silva Blanchfield. I don't know. Blanchfield's coming off of a couple of wins, but she also lost to Firo. So then Firo's like, where's my title shot? But Firo also lost to Valentina. So you kind of run in the carousel because there's just not too many mouths to feed in this division. But that said, Macy's trying to put her name in the hat for future champ considerations. Saturday is going to be her biggest shot of her career. And if she doesn't come through, she'll have more chances. She's still young and all of those things. But I think Saturday she can get the job done. So that's it. That'll be our main disagreement. I agree with Jose, though. I think the dog of the week, regardless if I have a weight on it or not, Julian Erosa, man. Holy, that's just a great pick. So we're looking at dog of the week, Julian Erosa, all day. No questions asked. Both Jose and I liked Adesanya, but the lock of the week is going to be Bahamondes with 8 confidence points. And that said, he's a pretty big favorite. So it's going to be a little tough to find value there. But in any case, thanks for listening. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, there's no gaps in fights coming up, so Jose and I will return every Monday going forward. We have a couple cards in between us and the next pay-per-view, so it'll be this Saturday, and then next Saturday we've got a card at the Meta Apex before we hit Miami. to see the light heavyweight belt on the line. One of my favorite fighters, Jiri, coming up. So that's exciting. But in any case, thanks for listening and have a good week.